Welcome, everybody. Maybe this is your first time with us. Maybe you're coming back. But this is our first time doing Pink Floyd. I'm Mike.
I'm Dev.
She's Dev. We're music for busy people.
We are. Continuously. Big flex for Pink Floyd.
I've always known that this album would be on the agenda at some point. I'm finally excited that we're getting to it. This, of course, is The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. This is one of the most classic, iconic albums of all time. Only that, no pressure. This is on a lot of people's top 10 lists and whatever. And I don't believe, Dev, have you ever just sat down and listened to The Dark Side of the Moon?
Of course not.
Okay, well, that's the thing.
The busy people in our title. You're the music, I'm the...
Music for busy people. Well, when I was a kid, I wasn't too busy to listen to albums all the way through. And that's the point of our channel, is to recreate when you would get an album and you didn't have anything else to look at but the album, and you would put it on, you would hang out and just listen to it.
Gaze upon the cover, yeah? Do you get into the artwork? You get into the artwork,
yes, obviously. If there's something to look at on the album, you look at it. If there's words, if the album provided words, you follow along. This album provided lyrics, hun, so you're going to get lyrics. Okay. What is she doing with her shirt over there?
I'm looking at the art.
We don't look at the lyrics unless the album provides the lyrics, but this album does provide the lyrics.
I'm the lyrics person.
Okay.
I prefer the words.
I tend to get lost in the music and don't care that much about the lyrics, but it's interesting when you do catch interesting things in the lyrics.
Yeah.
Pretend it's 1973, and we're going to pretend that that's how we're listening to this. And we're going to listen to it uninterrupted, at least side one.
Don't we need weed?
I think this is like the 4th best-selling album in history ever.
Oof.
This album changed everything for them. This is what made them like superstars.
Pink Floyd. Where does that come from?
I do not know where their name comes from.
Shame on you.
I do know they are from England.
Okay,
of course.
I didn't know that.
And they were founded in 1965.
Okay.
Their first album came out in 1967. And I also know that the original 4 members were Syd Barrett, Roger Waters, Richard Wright, and Nick Mason.
I know Roger Walters.
Okay, well, we'll talk about them. Syd Barrett was pretty much the leader of the group. He wrote, I think, most of the songs, and he was, I think, their primary singer. But he had some mental health issues and had to leave the band.
At what point?
After their first album or two. So in 1968, he was replaced by David Gilmour. So Syd Barrett played guitar and sang, replaced by David Gilmour, who now plays lead guitar and does most of the singing. Roger Waters is bass.
Mm-hmm.
Richard Wright is keyboards.
Interesting.
And Nick Mason is drums. Richard Wright has unfortunately passed on in 2008 from lung cancer. When Dark Side of the Moon was coming out, Roger Waters was kind of like the leader of the band. He wrote like all the lyrics.
Okay.
At least to this album. And to many of their albums.
It seems the best bands have collaboration on all different fronts. Because everybody has a piece of it, you know? They have skin in the game. They really want to contribute to the overall whole.
David Gilmour sings most of the songs. Roger Waters does sing lead sometimes. And I think the keyboard player, Richard Wright, also sings once in a while. But they were very proud of these lyrics. I think this was like his coming of age lyric-wise. That's why the lyrics are on the album. One other unfortunate fact is that David Gilmour and Roger Waters don't really like each other much. At least not anymore.
All that history, it's like a bad marriage.
And
or a marriage that goes bad. You know, if it works
Yeah.
for most of the time and then by the end you're just sick of each other. That's understandable.
Maybe a month or so ago, we were doing Rush. And it was our first Rush album. And we did Moving Pictures. And that was the first album where they stopped doing long instrumentals. And most of the songs were of reasonable length, and they weren't like entire sides and all that. And this album was the same thing for Pink Floyd. They used to have long instrumentals on their albums as well. Unless you're into progressive rock, you don't want to hear 20-minute songs.
Unless you're really faded.
This was recorded in Abbey Road Studios. We all know what that is, right? Right? And the sound engineer on this album is Alan Parsons, who was the sound engineer, I believe, for Abbey Road, the album.
Familiar.
So he's worked with the Beatles. He later had his own band called the Alan Parsons Project.
That's familiar too.
So the sound of this album has a lot to do with him. like the Beatles, Pink Floyd liked to maximize what they could do in the studio. So they were always trying stuff, experimenting with things. I always remember in the car listening to it if I was driving. Certain songs would come on, I just want to crank it, and the stereo effects were cool and all that. So I'm really looking forward to that. They were into quadraphonic sound. They actually used to do quadraphonic sound in their concerts. They used to have effects where it would go around the audience in quadraphonic ways.
Nice.
So they were doing that in concert. This album was mixed for quadraphonic. There are quadraphonic mixes of it out there that are cool, or 5.1 mixes that are cool. So, and this album, before I answer your question, student, I just want to say that this album is, of course, super awesome. I have heard it in surround sound, and again, a while back, but it's amazing. It's a masterpiece, not only from a songwriting, performing perspective, but just from a producing perspective as well. Well, let's look at the artwork. I'm sure we're all familiar with it. I'm sure you've seen this before. The classic album cover.
Man, that is a great cover. I would love to know who did that. Who was just like, of course, they were a fan of the music. They studied, they asked for input, and then poof.
I do know that somebody did a mock-up of many covers, and everybody was like, that's the cover.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at that album cover, do you see anything off?
Off? What do you mean by off?
Well, something that atypical of a prism, hint. Just look at all the colors and recite them to yourself and see what you
Technically, that's not what a rainbow should be.
Right. Usually there's 7 colors in the rainbow, in the prism. Roy G. Biv. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue. Indigo is missing, and violet. The prism runs all around to the back of the album.
This is our symbol from now on.
It's sort of a concept album in that there's a theme running through it about the pressures of life and mental illness, that kind of stuff. So that's running through all the lyrics.
All right.
And I think the triangle or the pyramid has some significance there. I could see this cover working for any album or any Pink Floyd album for sure.
I can't.
It just looks cool. I mean,
any Pink Floyd one, but like some of the people that just popped to my mind were like, nope.
Because it's simple and clean, yet it's awesome.
Oh no, it's a artistic marvel.
Here's the inside cover of the album. The rainbow keeps going, but one of the lines turns into a heartbeat because again, this is about life. You're going to hear on the album, there's sound effects. The heartbeat sound effect definitely shows up here and there. Unfortunately, we don't get to handle albums anymore. At least those of us that haven't bothered getting back into the vinyl craze. So you missed that. Also with the album, I believe it came with 2 posters and 2 stickers.
Nice.
I have them in the background there. You can see them.
Good advertising.
Now we're going to listen to side 1 all the way through because this album needs to be listened to uninterrupted. It's a totally different experience listening to them all transition into each other. So that's what we're going to do. And I'm not going to do my normal announcing of, okay, and now it's this song. I'm going to put the titles up while we're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Here we go with side 1 of Dark Side of the Moon. When I was a little kid, this used to scare me.
Yeah, it's about a resting heart rate.
We're going to hear that tape loop later. You can see why this would scare you as a little kid. That is a great opening. Especially into a song like this. The perfect vibe for a song called Breathe. definitely David Gilmour singing.
Leave, don't leave me. Look around, choose your own ground. How you live, how you fly, smiles you'll give and tears you'll cry. All you touch and all you see is all your life will ever be. Run, rabbit, run. Dig that hole, get the sun. When at last the work is done,
The use of stereo is masterful in this.
down, sit down, it's time to dig another one. How you live and how you fly, but only if you ride the tide. Balanced on the biggest wave, race towards an early grave.
I like lyrics.
So I think you're supposed to feel like you're in the airport.
Yeah, that's cool. This is somebody sprinting by.
Imagine that in quadraphonic. So this is about the stress of travel, I believe. I guess one or two of the band members didn't like flying.
This makes me think of physics.
Feel a little tense listening to it.
I wonder if they believed in UFOs.
Yeah, that's about fear of flying. first time you hear that, it kind of makes you jump. Awesome. We like long intros when they're cool. David Gilmour singing again.
Fritter and waste the hours in an offhand way. Picking around on a piece of ground in your hometown. Waiting for someone or something to show you the way. Tired of lying in the sunshine, staying home to watch the rain. And you are young and life is long, and there is time to kill today. And then
I believe that's Richard Wright singing.
10 years have gone behind you. No one told you when to run. You missed the starting gun.
That's called Birth.
It's like he's singing to us.
And you run to catch up with the sun, but it's sinking. Racing around to come up behind you again. The sun is the same.
And this, of course, is awesome how it ties back to Breathe.
I'll just close my eyes and zone out.
The slide work is great. Doesn't yet feel that way. Artistically yell. Now the worst is behind us. It ends very peacefully.
I don't know. I'd have to let that process.
And scene. That's it.
Oh, that was side one?
That was side one. You made it.
God, that felt so short.
I know.
That's
it just
not
flows.
right.
But there were like 4 or 5 songs there.
Yeah.
Listening to that in pieces wouldn't have done the same effect.
No.
You
I
couldn't
mean,
do it.
although if you had it running in the background and then you could like listen to the instrumental stuff and go about your business and stuff and then like tune back in, that would work. That would work for me. I was thinking like this would be a pretty cool writing song.
Just given how it all flows together, it's still like one flowing thing. Although these were recorded as separate songs, they just sort of masterfully spliced them together. They weren't
that's
performed
skill.
that way.
Yeah.
And they used to tour doing this entire album, like start to finish. That's a pretty famous vocal performance because it's an unusual thing to do, especially then. They basically used her like an instrument. Her name was Claire Torrey. I think when it was done, she was like, oh God, that was horrible. They're never going to use that. But they loved it. They didn't tell her that at the time because they just hired her, they paid her, and she left. Now, she eventually sued them because she felt like her performance was key to that song. And you got to admit, it is pretty much is, right? I mean, sure, the chord progression is great and the playing is fine, but her singing is the point of that song.
You heard it when you were a little kid. That
Right.
must have been
Especially the
mind-blowing.
screaming. It's way more common now to hear people singing like that.
Totally. Good
But
point.
back then, that was like, whoa, what is that? There's a vocal performance on Gimme Shelter where
Okay.
she gets to the point of practically screaming,
Okay.
but it's just so powerful that it works. A lot of people get lost in the middle of songs that are more than a few minutes long if they don't drastically change.
Right.
You either get, I don't want it to end, or you get,
Wrap it up.
wrap it up. I would just say about the On the Run track, the one that was the sequencer, the guy running through the airport.
Mhm. That was fun.
That was fun. But now that I'm listening to it, I'm like, this could be a little shorter.
I didn't feel lost in that one. But then I felt like that was a gradual ramping up to the next song.
Well, it wasn't a ramping up. It was just sort of crashed. It ramped up to a
Crashed?
crash. Yeah, it ended with a plane crash, that song.
Where was I?
You didn't hear the crash at the end of the song?
No.
Okay. I'm putting that back on. Hear the airplane coming?
This is supposed to be a plane?
I think so. Or some vehicle. Just listen.
Nope. Just sounds like a lead guitar going.
It doesn't sound like something crashing.
Huh?
That doesn't sound like a crash or an explosion to you.
No.
Okay.
Not a real one.
We all hear what we hear.
Yep.
There's no letting up on this album. It's just a great, chill, flowing, amazing. There's some rockin' moments, though. I mean, there were some on there.
Yeah, there were. Yep.
Yeah, and there's
Yep.
more coming. I'm glad we got to listen to the entire side together. Before we say goodbye, just a quick thank you to our patrons. We couldn't do it without you. If you haven't seen our Patreon, here's some information. We have extra videos there for our patrons. And we don't really get to monetize these videos, so the patronage is very much appreciated and needed. And if you'd like to leave us a one-time tip or donation, if that's your bag, here's the information for that. It could be PayPal or the thanks button on some of our videos. Any donation of $5 or more will get recognized in our next video.
And a genuine thank you for anybody who shows up. Just
To the premieres, to just
olds.
watching,
Yeah, our community
commenting.
is beloved to us.
liking, sharing the video, all that stuff is really helpful. So thanks, guys.
Hi, guys.
All right, take care.